Imagine you are standing on your porch on a crisp spring morning in an American suburb. In your hand is a warm cup of coffee, its steam gently rising into the air. Before your eyes, the garden is at its most vibrant moment. Black-capped chickadees dart swiftly between branches, a pair of wrens chatter as they forage in the bushes, and a northern cardinal with brilliant red plumage slowly pecks at sunflower seeds on the feeder. The singing, the flapping of wings, and the flock calls blend together to create a familiar dawn symphony, a pure sound that makes you believe the world is entirely peaceful. But then, in the blink of an eye, everything completely disappears. It is not that each bird falls silent one by one, nor does the sound fade gradually. Everything stops at the exact same time, as if an invisible hand has just pressed the mute button on the entire world. The feeder is empty, and the tree branches stand completely still. You look around. The sky is still blue, the hydrangeas are still blooming, and nothing unusual seems to happen. But your intuition knows something is wrong. This silence is not empty. It is thick, tense, and carries an invisible weight. You have just witnessed the activation of the most ancient and sophisticated danger warning system in nature. Birds never fall silent randomly. Every silence is a story, a code of survival that, if you learn to listen, will help you understand the deepest secrets happening right in your own garden. To understand the meaning of this sudden silence, we need to look at the world through the eyes of a creature weighing only a few dozen grams. When the entire garden shifts from a state of bustle to dead silence in less than 2 seconds, it is a sign that a battle of life and death is about to begin. The most common culprit is the appearance of an aerial raptor, such as a Cooper's hawk or a sharp-shinned hawk. 4 tiny songbirds. Movement means death, because these hunters of the sky possess extremely sharp vision and they hunt by detecting movement. In ornithology, this behavior is called the freeze response. Instead of panicking and flying away to turn themselves into moving targets, the small birds choose to hide. They press their feathers tight against their bodies to reduce their size, cling tightly to the tree bark, or tuck themselves deep into dense thorny bushes. They do not leave. They remain there, their hearts beating rapidly in their tiny chests, holding their breath as they wait for the disaster to pass. Next time, if your garden suddenly becomes as quiet as a graveyard, do not look down at the ground. Look up high, scan the old treetops or power lines, and you will see a dark silhouette patiently watching, and the birds in the garden knew its position before you could even realize it. However, there is another type of silence, one that does not arrive as fast as lightning but gnaws at the space gradually. That is the silence named the ground predator, most commonly represented by free-roaming domestic cats. Researchers use the term risk map to describe how birds remember fear. A cat does not need to catch a bird to harm the garden. Just one time a cat is spotted crouching under a hydrangea bush or strolling casually on the lawn, that information will be spread instantly. The birds will immediately mark your garden as a red danger zone. The silence caused by cats is an erosion of sound that lasts for weeks. Birds will choose to eat elsewhere, sing elsewhere, and nest elsewhere, turning your seed-filled feeder into a silent desert. Yet, nature is always fair by granting birds an incredible collective intelligence to deal with ground predators like snakes or owls. When a chickadee detects a snake crawling near its nest, it will not fall silent right away, but will emit rapid, agitated alarm calls. Scientific studies have proven that the number of suffix notes in their calls contains a huge amount of information about the danger level of the enemy. Even more miraculously, other surrounding birds like nuthatches or sparrows also eavesdrop and decode this cipher to retreat together into safety. After that coordinated chain of alarm calls, a profound silence will envelop the area. That is not the silence of lonely fear, but the silence of an organized and highly intelligent defense system. There are days when your garden falls into stillness without any shadow of a predator. That is when the birds are reacting to the great conductors of nature, weather, and time. Imagine a sunny afternoon in the American Midwest, the sky clear without a single cloud, but the space around your house suddenly becomes strangely quiet. Before you can even think about checking the weather app on your phone, the birds already know a major storm is rushing in. This magical ability comes from a biological sense far beyond human understanding, the ability to hear infrasound. Severe storms and tornadoes moving thousands of kilometers away always generate low-frequency sound waves that propagate through the air. Human ears cannot hear them, but birds can. They can hear the roar of natural disasters 2 days before they make landfall and proactively evacuate from the danger zone. Therefore, the silence against the blue sky is not confusion, but a sacred preparation for survival. Another rhythm of silence is cyclical on a daily basis, usually appearing at midday, from around 12 noon to 3 in the afternoon during summer. This is not the silence of fear, but a problem of energy management. For a small bird, singing is one of the most calorie-burning and energy-consuming activities. It requires the continuous use of vocal muscles and generates a large amount of heat inside the body. During the hottest times of the day, the price to pay for loud singing outweighs the benefits of claiming territory or courting a mate. The birds choose to adjust their schedule. They pour all their energy into the dawn chorus early in the morning, when the air is cool and sound travels farthest. By noon, they choose to rest under the shade of porches or hide in dense foliage, quietly panting and waiting for the cool breezes of late afternoon to resume activities. Finally, silence can come from the shift of time as summer gradually closes in July and August. Those who love bird songs often feel a sense of loss during this period as the volume of the garden drops noticeably day by day. In fact, the biggest biological driver that pushes birds to sing is the breeding season. Once the eggs have hatched, the chicks have grown strong and left the nest. The need for male birds to sing is no longer urgent. Continuing to sing too loudly at this time only brings the risk of being detected by enemies. At the same time, many migratory birds also begin to prepare for their long journey of thousands of miles to the warm south. The silence of late summer days is not an end, but a gentle turning of the calendar page of time, preparing for a new cycle. Sometimes, the cause that makes the garden suddenly silent does not come from the sky, the weather, or natural predators, but from ourselves. Birds are extremely sensitive creatures to their surroundings, and they can learn to coexist and get used to the presence of humans. They recognize your familiar footsteps and know your routine when you go out to the yard every morning. However, this tolerance only exists when human activities are regular and predictable. A screen door slammed too hard, a step taken too fast toward the feeder, or a stranger appearing suddenly with a pet dog rushing toward the window will immediately upset the safety algorithm in the minds of the birds. The garden will fall into silence because you have accidentally turned yourself into an unpredictable threat. Birds do not need a garden completely devoid of people. They just need a space where every movement happens slowly and harmoniously. But there is another kind of silence that is much more terrifying, a silence that does not come with alarm calls and cannot recover when the sun sets or when the seasons change. That is the silence of absence, and the main culprit is the chemical pesticides that we spray on lawns and ornamental plants around the house. When these chemicals soak into the soil and plant tissues, they do not just destroy harmful insects, but also eradicate the very root of the natural food source. Did you know that 96% of land birds in North America depend entirely on insects to feed their chicks during the breeding season? Scientific studies have shown that even when not directly fatal, exposure to pesticides causes migratory birds to suffer severe weight loss and lose their orientation, missing the golden time windows to maintain their lineage. A garden cared for with chemicals to have a perfect green lawn, ironically, is a dead garden. Bird parents cannot find a single caterpillar to feed their hungry brood in the nest. They will stop visiting, stop nesting, and their songs will permanently disappear from your porch. The silence that covers these houses is not a temporary reaction to evade enemies, but a slow yet cruel erasure of the entire food chain. Instead of abusing chemicals, choosing natural care methods, planting native plants, and letting birds become the natural insect control system is the gentlest solution to keep life and joyful melodies for your home. The most frightening silence does not lie in the empty feeders on a stormy afternoon, but lies in a larger truth happening across the continent. A shocking study from leading ornithological organizations has shown that we have lost nearly 3 billion breeding birds since the 1970s. These are not rare birds in remote rainforests, but the familiar little friends right outside your window, the sparrows, robins, and swallows that once defined the sound of every childhood morning. The sky is growing emptier, and mornings are becoming less noisy, not because a hawk just flew by, but because many living beings have permanently ceased to exist in this world. But this story does not close with despair. The exact same data also lit up a powerful ray of hope. In places where humans began to take action, protecting wetlands, reducing chemicals, and replanting native plants, bird populations have recovered miraculously. The birds that are still finding their way to your garden every day are the most resilient warriors. They choose to live next to you, share the living space with you, and gift you the purest melodies of earth and sky. The most powerful thing you can do today to preserve those sounds is not something too grand, but simply to learn to pay attention. Listen and understand each silence of the garden. When you truly begin to listen, you will become a protector for their world. Please share in the comments section below which type of silence in the garden surprises you the most, and which bird you will miss the most if one day their song disappears. Let us together keep the green symphonies from ever having to fall silent.